The British Crown feared one thing more than any pirate fleet: that executing a legendary captain might turn him into an immortal hero. So in 1722 it transformed every trial, hanging, and iron gibbet into a terrifying spectacle designed to destroy not only the pirate himself, but the legend that had once made the entire Atlantic tremble beneath the black flag.
Enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe.
Trace your finger along the map from the Thames estuary to Execution Dock and picture the year 1722 as the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp rigging, stale bilge water, coal smoke, wet river mud, and sulphur drifted across London's crowded waterfront beneath a low grey sky. Every incoming tide carried merchant brigs, naval sloops, East Indiamen, and prison barges through water darkened by centuries of commerce and punishment, while thousands gathered to witness justice against men whose names had terrified the Atlantic. Yet the greatest fear that morning did not belong to the condemned pirates. It haunted the judges, sheriffs, admirals, and even the Crown itself. Executing an infamous pirate captain was never a simple punishment, because every public hanging risked transforming a criminal into a legend. During the final years of the Golden Age of Piracy, between roughly 1716 and 1722, many pirate vessels displaced between 80 and 120 tons, their pronounced tumble-homes supported by massive oak futtocks fastened with hand-forged iron spikes nearly 11 inches long, driven deep into seasoned frames. Their crews ignored royal commissions, rejected lawful letters of marque, and instead obeyed articles of agreement negotiated among themselves, creating disciplined companies that often fought with astonishing determination even after capture. Officials understood that one reckless execution could inspire desperate sailors across the Atlantic to admire defiance instead of fearing punishment, forcing governments to transform every hanging into a carefully orchestrated display of overwhelming state power rather than simple revenge. Before a single rope could be placed around a pirate's neck, months of preparation unfolded behind prison walls because English authorities recognized that even chained captains remained dangerously influential. Heavy wrought iron shackles weighing more than 15 pounds locked around scarred ankles, while reinforced wrist manacles restricted movement enough to prevent sudden attacks upon guards carrying flintlock muskets fitted with triangular socket bayonets nearly 17 inches long. Prisoners were deliberately separated so they could not repeat the speeches that had once united crews beneath black flags flying above weathered sloops strengthened through repeated careening on isolated beaches where leaking seams had been packed with twisted oakum before layers of boiling pine tar sealed every plank against Atlantic water. Court officials collected witness testimony proving attacks had occurred without valid letters of marque, because piracy under English maritime law remained a capital offense requiring unmistakable evidence. Even after conviction, another concern remained. Crowds frequently admired fearless behavior, and a pirate who laughed beneath the gallows could become more dangerous in death than during years at sea. Sheriffs therefore controlled every detail, from the route of the procession to the position of soldiers lining the streets, hoping discipline, ceremony, and visible military force would crush any illusion that rebellion offered glory, while reminding every sailor watching from anchored merchant vessels that the Crown possessed greater endurance than even the most feared captain roaming the Atlantic. Execution Day itself followed rituals refined through decades, because authorities understood that symbolism carried almost as much weight as the sentence. Prisoners were transported aboard barges timed with the falling tide toward Execution Dock, where spectators packed every wharf, rooftop, warehouse window, and anchored vessel. Royal Marines stood shoulder to shoulder with loaded muskets, while mounted constables waited beyond the waterfront in case sympathy erupted into violence. The condemned often wore the coarse remnants of clothing issued inside prison, replacing the brightly colored sashes and embroidered coats that had once projected power across Caribbean trade routes. Nearby rested the gallows built from massive oak beams, secured with iron straps capable of supporting several bodies at once without structural failure. When the hangman adjusted the hemp rope, its tightly twisted fibers measured nearly an inch in diameter, chosen to withstand tremendous strain without snapping. The objective extended beyond death itself. Officials wanted every observer to witness the absolute destruction of pirate authority. The black flag no longer represented freedom, the cutlass no longer inspired terror, and the captain who had once commanded broadsides from bronze cannon, cast from alloys containing roughly 88% copper and 10% tin, now stood helpless beneath the authority of the law, surrounded not by loyal crews but by soldiers, magistrates, priests, and thousands of silent witnesses determined to see the empire reclaim mastery over the sea. Even after the execution ended, the punishment had only begun because governments feared that an ordinary burial might allow dangerous reputations to survive. Instead, the bodies of notorious pirate leaders were frequently suspended inside massive iron gibbets forged from heavy-wrought bars weighing close to 100 pounds before the corpse was secured with locking bands around the neck, chest, waist, arms, and legs. These grim cages were raised beside busy waterways where every incoming merchant crew would confront the remains long before reaching London. Salt wind, freezing rain, blazing summer heat, hungry seabirds, and constant river mist slowly reduced flesh while the iron frame preserved the unmistakable outline of the criminal for months or even years. Officials intentionally selected locations visible from the busiest shipping channels because every passing sailor represented another audience. Young apprentices learning to reef topsails, experienced helmsmen steering heavily laden East Indiamen, naval officers commanding frigates of more than 500 tons, and foreign merchants unfamiliar with English justice all received the same message without a single spoken word. Pirate glory ended not with hidden treasure, but with public decay. The Crown believed that fear created by a slowly disintegrating corpse overlooking the Thames would discourage countless future recruits far more effectively than secret executions hidden behind prison walls, transforming every tide into another lesson about the overwhelming reach of royal authority. Yet despite these carefully constructed displays, kings and ministers never underestimated the men they condemned because piracy flourished wherever war, unemployment, famine, and collapsing trade created desperate sailors willing to gamble everything. A captured captain might possess knowledge of hidden anchorages, corrupt governors, merchants secretly purchasing stolen cargo, and naval officers accepting bribes in distant colonies. Executing such prisoners too quickly risked destroying valuable intelligence, while delaying execution increased the possibility of escape, mutiny, or rescue by loyal associates. Several pirate crews had previously demonstrated remarkable discipline under articles of agreement that distributed prize money according to fixed shares rather than noble privilege, creating fierce loyalty rarely found aboard harsh naval vessels where flogging remained common. Experienced pirates understood every element of seamanship, from balancing sail plans against shifting Atlantic winds to calculating displacement after captured cargo increased draft by several feet. They recognized weaknesses in convoy formations, knew precisely how weather altered maneuverability, and exploited the slower turning radius of heavily armed merchant ships with pronounced tumble-home and towering stern castles. For rulers attempting to protect expanding empires, each notorious pirate represented more than a criminal. He embodied a dangerous example, proving that organized resistance at sea could challenge governments, disrupt international commerce worth millions of pounds, and inspire ordinary seamen to question whether royal authority truly controlled the oceans. The greatest irony of the Golden Age of Piracy was that the world's most feared rulers rarely feared the cutlass itself. They feared the legend surrounding the man who carried it, because legends survived long after battles ended and ships disappeared beneath the sea. Every execution, therefore, became a carefully engineered political spectacle designed not merely to kill a pirate, but to destroy the myth that surrounded him. Gallows, iron gibbets, public processions, military escorts, maritime trials, and the deliberate display of decomposing bodies along the busiest waterways formed one coordinated campaign intended to dominate the imagination of every sailor entering British waters. Officials wanted apprentices climbing rat lines for the first time, hardened merchant captains, Royal Navy officers, and foreign traders alike to understand that the Crown possessed limitless patience and overwhelming authority. The bodies suspended above the Thames became silent warnings visible through fog, rain, and winter frost, reminding every passing crew that piracy ended not with hidden treasure, glorious last stands, or legendary riches, but with humiliation, decay, and complete defeat. By the middle of the 18th century, this relentless combination of expanding naval power, improved intelligence networks, harsher maritime law, international cooperation, and calculated public terror gradually shattered the foundations that had allowed pirate republics to flourish. The age that had once produced names capable of terrifying entire coastlines finally collapsed, because governments realized that defeating pirates required destroying both their ships and the legends that kept recruiting new followers across the Atlantic.